Distinctions. A non-homogenetic bestiary. For a knot. A species are distinctions. The first distinction concerns efficacy, the ability to wind or wend. The second distinction concerns futility, wend. Those that wend are overly bent. The bent species perambulates on multiple limbs, limb, lime, links. The lynx was once a limb, now severed, a species of its own, according to the fourth distinction. Severed. A species may separate into many pieces, at paces clipping or protracted, pieces of sameness or pieces a glimmer. Multifarious species grow from these splinters. Clipping. The fast-moving species may appear to break apart as they proceed. The species that bends to the point of breaking may alter, a fence in the corpus, causing the body to stagger and shift purpose. Like the limberly lynx, the species that bends to the point of breaking may sever to grow aground, growing again from a distinct severance. The species perambulates on multiple limbs, lime, limb, links. Second, the futile is never finished, only to furnish other futures. The futile distinction may bend, break, or breach. The third distinction concerns crust. Futile. The most striking thing about first encountering a knot, my child, was the seeming gulf between the futility of this small being and the potential of a fully grown adult. Though incapable of doing much in these early days, Nadi still routinely demonstrated the manifest power of her small body. Just hours after birth, while Rachel was holding Nadi, attempting to breastfeed, Nadi unleashed an enormous load of excrement, covering both herself and Rachel. Third, between crusted and smooth, species either crack or curl. The fourth distinction concerns connections. Crusted. This crusted species cracks at points of substantial crud, the buildup of secondary skins breaking open calderas with rigid rings. The species maintains many rings, at times smooth and at times crusted. The pustules pop at the rings' rounds and subsume back to skin. I've been amazed at how the diaper sores and rashes that pock the areas around a knot's anus disappear, fading back into soft skin as quickly as they appear. Rounds. A species are hardly edges, but rather a roundness smoothed to edgeless, a ball plump for its doughiness. Atop the nexus, a mound of dough, beneath, a compact composite. Around 5 or 6 months, we started calling Nadi a doughhead, as her cheeks and neck plumped up and rounded out. Her head resembled a mound of dough with 2 blueberries embedded deep down in it. The phase didn't last long, as the knot's face started to take on more distinguishing features. Looking back at photographs from a knot's first year, we mark time as pre-doughhead, doughhead, and post-doughhead. Nexus. The fourth distinction is the neck-air nexus, the point at which many become one or break into pieces. The fifth distinction concerns speed. Many become one. Species are formed by connecting at nodes and needles. A node, like a hub, circles connections, a point of aggregation, but a node, like a needle, pokes out and out. Hub. The species lynx may seem a nub, a ring become crusted with drooping accretions. A nub slowly grows off a ring, first appearing like another node in the hub. But the nub is not like other nodes, rather a special growth, an index, a mirrored indent, to become a needle pointing outward, seeking connection. Fifth, some species emerge in floods and others flow in sludge. The sixth distinction relates to states of rest. Sludge. The slow-moving species affects a smooth plane as they proceed. Smooth. Green ear, let curl at use. The smooth species folds and folds and folds relentlessly, bending at each sound. Though bent to rippling, the folds are without interruption. Green. I wrote this line, the one about the green ear, as a line of magnetic refrigerator poetry years ago, years before an out was conceived. I've liked the line and I've kept it on the refrigerator door all this time. Bending. Those that wend are overly bent. Bent. The bent species perambulates on multiple limbs. Limb, lime, lynx, limb. The bent species limb, undermines soil as if to swim. See the next limb. The lime limb climbs to greater climbs. See the next limb. On an ulterior torso, the lynx limb hangs as a lump. See the next limb. The lynx was once a limb, now severed, a species of its own, according to the fourth distinction. Sixth. From states of arrest, species awake. The next distinction concerns firmness. Awake. At the end of a rest, whether suddenly a start, or with a grumble, a gripe, a graw, a yawn, the species stirs awake, a narrow wake at first, one wave trembling, then into two waves parting, a wide wake, the species upstarts. Arrest. The species stills almost a silence, moving slightly laterally on the surface of a smooth plane. Silence. Nadia has always been a good sleeper, going down easily and quickly for naps and at night, though now as I'm writing this at nearly 15 months, she has begun resisting falling asleep for her naps. She likes taking books with her into her crib, turning the pages back and forth. Smooth plane. The slow-moving species affects a smooth plane as they proceed. Smooth. Green ear, let curl at use. The smooth species folds and folds and folds relentlessly, bending at each sound. Though bent to rippling, the folds are without interruption. Sixth. From states of arrest, species awake. The next distinction concerns firmness. Firmness. Species begins soft as dough, a dew that firms as crystal. Firms. A species cycles and forms, from flimsy to firm. Flimsy. The futile is never finished, only to furnish other futures. The futile distinction may bend, break, or breach. The third distinction concerns crust. Breach. The species that breaches broaches through middles, typically with beak, but also with full bills. Full bills. The bill is a beak but flattened, with species supine and bill suspended. The appendage acts as a fence, with species prostrate and bill submerged. The appendage acts as an anchor. Anchor. An anchor is a catalyst that slows speciation. Slowness does not defer development, but rather attracts accumulation of external actors. Clam can claim multitudes in bands of crust. Slowness. The slow-moving species affects a smooth plane as they proceed. Green ear let curl at use, the smooth species folds and folds and folds, relentlessly bending at each sound. Though bent to rippling, the folds are without interruption. First. The first distinction concerns efficacy, the ability to wind or wend. The second distinction concerns futility, wind. Winding species blur in movement, blurt in starting and bark in stopping. To bar from altering the winding species, the observer falters at the tongue, speaks only in breaths. Observer. It's true that I was speechless at the moment of my daughter's birth. First I was holding one of Rachel's legs up and pushing back, then I was at the birth canal.